Can you do it based on last lesson? Just describe last lesson, 4 or 5 adjectives which describe last lesson, and then describe the lesson that we did this morning again.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. This was a really good lesson. Yeah, good lesson. Yeah. This one wasn't so good. This really one. So what changed from this lesson to this lesson? What was behind this good lesson that wasn't behind this lesson?
It was planned a lot more in advance.
Right.
So I had all my photocopying and my acetates and everything were done days ago, whereas this one I did the photocopying that morning for that lesson.
Right. Okay.
I'd cleaned the board and everything was done before they arrived rather than as they arrived. The steps in that lesson, like the activities, were in, like the progression of the learning was in a more logical order than the other one.
Yeah, very much. But this was a difficult class, you were telling me. Is there any difficulties at all?
No, they've got a lot better recently, and I'm sure having you in the class helped.
Okay.
But yeah, they're not terrible. I think I painted a worse picture of them.
So if I hadn't have been there, would it have been?
Just I would have had to wait for them. Whenever they do a bit of work, it just takes a bit longer to get every single one of them quiet.
Yeah. Okay. So there, so there's some of the secrets to an effective lesson. Okay. So what we need to do is try and pick out from the lesson that you had today, is anything else in there that made it as effective, so we can maybe add to this. That's what you said. Okay. So have a look at it. Do you remember last time I gave you? I get it right. I had it put that one there. That's the categories. Last time that we looked at, yeah, for this lesson, yeah. Now, if you ignore the blue, try and ignore the blue, and if you just see what's happened to those categories for this lesson as well, you've moved them across. So, if you remember, over-reliance of volunteers in your lesson. deliberate attempt to get everybody involved, deliberate targeting of lesson of kids. So that's really, really good. Your male and female was out of kilter, it wasn't. Yeah. And here you've got you're involving students at the periphery of the classroom. So everything that was on there, you've moved right across, which is good. In terms of your classroom techniques, again, yeah, your voice is still good, your board work's much clearer, your OHT is clearer. Crucially, your transitions were good. Okay, and once or twice, not every time, but once or twice, your expectations were clear. You will walk around the classroom and you will speak French. Now it's a clear instructions, they all understood. So that's really good. So you've shifted that over here. All the rest, purposeful relationships, behaviour, feedback. This feedback was good. Yeah, at the end of the lesson. How confident would you be if you went up to somebody in France? Okay, so that was good. Yeah. Okay. So we've got some. So the first thing is, well done for that, right? You've shifted it all over there, but you know me, or you'll get to know me. There's always going to be something when you go in that blue column to be shifted across. So if we have a look at the lesson itself. This is a sequence graph of that lesson. So here's the pupils at the door. Good. I actually didn't hear a reference to the lesson objectives, although they were on the wall. Maybe that's something you need to make more explicit.
Yeah.
There's two things we are asking you to push: the lesson intentions and the success criteria. Yeah. You don't need to do all of that at the beginning, but at the beginning of the task of the wandering around the room, not just you will be successful if you manage to speak French throughout the activity, but you will be successful if you can use the verb, the infinitive verb, to there, So that's what we need to stress here too, and I haven't put that on there, but we should do. The first activity was good. They got straight into it, they were dead silent, and they got on. Then I started ticking off volunteers and to see if you listened last time, and you obviously had. And your encouragement to volunteers. When you encouraged the numbers of volunteers, put your hand up, and that shows me the great relationship between you and the children. You assessed that and you moved on, and it was this listening task where you modelled it first and then they moved into that activity. And here again is your questioning. Who are you questioning in this class? Target, volunteer, target, volunteer, target, target, no answer from Katie, so you went to volunteer. Well, that's right, because Anna now helps these two. Sometimes I will say in class, can anybody help her? And that really helps the ethos of the class. Or you can do what's called piggybacking, where you can say to somebody, well, that's an answer, can you improve on his answer? Yeah? So you don't have, that takes away the teacher telling them the answer, or go to a pupil who will tell them the answer. You try and find somebody who can improve on an answer. We'll come back to that later. So that was really good. Maybe again, what I was saying to you earlier on was about the SEAL approach, social and emotional aspects of learning. How did they feel about it? What was their confidence level? Now you came to that at the end of the lesson, but there's also enough time maybe to ask them for it as well at the end of each activity. Not every activity, but each key activity to ask them how we felt about it. Okay, then we moved into the main activity about 9:30. So all I've said on here is, as far as that activity is concerned, is a bit more pace.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah.
When I was going over the vocab and getting them to work out what, like, the parts of each sentence, it was going really slowly.
Yeah. And I think you could have got much more out of the core activity if you'd maybe got through that a bit more
I think
quickly.
if, that little sheet that I gave them that was the same as the OHT. I think if I'd given them that with gaps to fill,
Yeah.
and asked them to do that before we went over
Yeah.
the vocab.
Yeah. So it's not adjusting what you want out of it, it's just adjusting how you do it.
Mhm.
So that would be good. So again, this went through really well. You got the infinitive out of it. You used Faddy a lot to help you get that out of there. What I've said though is that sometimes when Faddy makes an answer, it's very difficult to hear some of the children. So there's one technique is for him to say it,
Get somebody
Then-
else to repeat it.
then get somebody else to repeat it, and then you repeat it, because you've got such a strong voice, and everybody will listen to you. Yeah? Well, they will, because it's such a good voice. You'd be surprised how many people haven't got such a good voice. Yeah? So remember thinking threes in terms of when you really want something like an infinitive verb. It's very complex, and Catherine wasn't there for that lesson previously. It might have helped her
She
if
was.
she heard it 3 times. Well, she said she wasn't. So, yeah.
But yeah, no.
You know, if you get the point, yeah.
Yeah.
Your key words are behind the pupils. So I've just added in there. You know, the days of the week. Yeah. So if I'm in your classroom and I can't remember the key words, I'll have to do that.
I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of that.
And
Yeah.
just if you put the key words in front of the kids,
Yeah.
where the kids can see them, they get, like the maps. That's what we're saying with the maps. Put the maps up where the kids can see them, and
Yeah.
you don't have to teach them, because you just put the days of the week, and it's there in front of them, and that's a learning wall for them. So your key learning is actually in front of them, eye contact. They're looking at you. You might glance up at the teacher, at the wall, to give you an answer. You see,
Yeah, I've
So
never
shift
thought
them.
of that.
where the kids can see them,
Yeah.
right? Not where
I
the
thought
teacher
it looked
can
nice
see them.
above that board.
Yeah, but it's a learning thing.
Yeah,
isn't it?
no, I hadn't thought of that.
Okay. This was good. Daniel, obviously, he said, "Can I use Essica?" Something like that was really good for him, and you worked with him on that. But you moved on quickly, because that wasn't really the point. But you let him say it, and that was good. Can I talk about Elliot for a minute?
Yes.
Yeah. Elliot, here, when it's your questioning, it's the way you question. All right. Can you tell me what kind of an answer might I get? Can
No.
you tell me? I'll get. Yeah, I can tell you.
Yeah.
No, I can't tell you. But what did Elliot say?
Can't remember.
No, I can't. The first time, and then the second time you asked him a question. No.
Did he?
Yeah. It's because of the question you ask. So if you said, "Well, Elliot, tell me," that's an instruction. Can you tell me is an invitation. So with kids like Elliot, who are probably prone not to give you an answer, instruct them. Tell me,
Yeah.
okay? Show me.
Yeah.
Read what you have written. Yeah?
Yeah.
He then has to respond. It's just knowing what you're saying. So can you? No. He's not doing anything wrong, he's just saying no. And you move on. So it's the thing. So it's instructing. Tell me, show me, read what you have written. No? Tell me the conversation that you had with Catherine. Tell me about the conversation you've had with Catherine sitting next to him. He has to tell you.
Yeah.
Alright, so little tweak there. Okay? He did give you an answer at the end, but I had looked through his book, and he's a level 5, that's his target level, and he's coming up with 2s, and so he's underachieving. So target them big style. Okay? You might have avoided him because of where you're sitting next to me or near me, but the other 2 girls joined in quite easily. Don't ignore them. I'm there.
Yeah,
Go
he's
for
been
it.
moved to that seat
Yeah,
from next to Faddy
right.
because he was doing nothing at
Right.
all.
Okay. Well, put him in the seat that I sat in.
Yeah, so I can
So
see
his
him.
back isn't
Yeah,
to
because
you.
normally Catherine would be where you are.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I need him next to Amy so I can see his face.
Okay. So what you've done is you've introduced this and you've used your sequence map, which was good. I invited you to do that last time. And then they started off on the task. They were demonstrating their learning. Yeah. And I asked, is it Amy next to me? I said, what helped you the most? She says, the one thing that helped me the most to demonstrate my learning there was I had the sequence map in front of me. And she said I could see how the words connected together. She could also see how she could change the words at any time. That's she said that was the purpose of the arrow. So that was a good thing there. If you'd saved time here, what you could have done down here is to go to another level of demonstration. So they saw it from you and heard it from you. They did it. This was kinesthetic. The bit that's missing though was they didn't write it. And not all kids pick up learning from hearing, seeing or doing. Some kids need to write it. So I would have not left that sequence. I would have moved perhaps, the 8 days or the 7 days dates. I would have then transferred that as a homework or whatever to a writing task. So actually using the verb, the infinitive verb. But using the data that they'd collected. So each kid would be different.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
So remember, language, it's oral, it's visual, and it's doing. But I think, crucially, the writing skills, the consolidation, the double processing that needs to happen there. Is that okay? Is that,
Yeah.
And the feedback was good, and that was good. What I've said here was continue to use the sequence map and double process it. So when you add the date, the time, the place, maybe think about cutting out some of this business and do the real consolidation of them writing it out at the end of the day, or give them a tool to complete with it. I think they should actually. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So can we add anything more to this then?
I don't see how I could have missed like that stage out.
Oh, I don't think. No, I'm not saying miss it out. Get through it quicker, pacier, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, I was assuming they should have known this. They should know this wasn't new learning, was it?
No, but they did in year 7, so...
Right, it's a refresher.
Yes, for a lot of them it would be literally relearning it.
All right, okay, so it is virtually new. Yeah. So, well, maybe think about what I've said about the writing of it, and when you do this, make sure it's a writing task results in it. Because only by writing it, they take that away with them, don't they, at the end of the day?
But converting that into a homework task.
Yeah. Or if they've had it, you could start the lesson. They've already got that data. That could be the first lesson. So you're going straight for the core learning, and then you're adding new learning as they add to. So your first core learning could be write 3 or 4 sentences using the sequence map plus the data that they've got. It's just a suggestion, as they come in. That's up to you. But I think if you have a look back at, is this today?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Your planning, you prepared the room, your progression was well thought through, I thought. Okay. But let's not forget the core things as well. There's also your relationships. Okay. There's also your no-nonsense approach. There's your use of names. Okay. And the way you engaged all children. Yeah. And crucially, the activity was good activity. and it was enjoyable, and they enjoyed it, and they were laughing, and they were happy doing it. Yeah? So you've got some of the ingredients there for that's what makes it an effective lesson.
What's just happened in terms of using the maps in the feedback that Kevin's just given you?
Okay, so started off by doing a bubble map of each of the lessons that he observed me with. That was the one that he observed me with a month or two ago, and then that was the one today. And just 5 main points about the lessons. So I've got 5 main points about my Year 9 lesson, 5 main points about my Year 8 lesson.
Yeah.
And then we went over how I'd improved from, because this lesson was much better than this one, and we went over how I'd improved by looking at these tree maps. So for each of the 3 things, the questioning, I've got things here that was good, things here that I needed to improve on. Same for classroom techniques, things that were good and things I need to improve on. And with the 2 side by side, you can quite clearly see like how I've improved from this one to this one. That's quite good. And then we went through the lesson that I'd done using a sequence map, so just like step by step exactly what happened in the lesson. And then we discussed, reflecting on the lesson that didn't go very well and the lesson that did go very well, we did like a cause and effect. The things that you need then to make an effective lesson.
And how do you feel as an NQT about this method of feedback? Obviously the thinking maps have been quite fundamental in the way that Kevin gave you the feedback. How do you feel about that?
Well, the bubble maps, in the past I've just been asked to write write an evaluation of the lesson. So just like write a paragraph or something about the lesson, which is sometimes quite hard to do. Whereas if you just asked to write key points, he said 5 key things about the lesson, and that's much easier to do and much easier to look at the lesson then using the 5 points than had it been like in a paragraph. To then discuss it with somebody else, just looking at the paragraph that I'd written, isn't always helpful. But having it like that with 5 key points that we can discuss in turn, it's quite a good way of doing it. The same with this one, with instead of having, like in the past, like this kind of feedback and this kind of feedback would be all rolled into one, and then just kind of turned into like almost an essay. So it would be what was going on in the lesson, and then when something was good, and then when I could have improved something. But having it in like 2 separate things, quite clearly what was good and what needed to improve, and then the other lesson, then I can compare this column with this column and this column with this column. It's a lot easier and a lot more useful than if I just had like 2 pieces of A4 paper that had been written on to try and like pick out the key points and like discuss them. It's just a lot easier if you've got it set out like that. Same with this, when we're going through the lesson, having feedback just with the key points in order. So it's a lot easier to discuss it with somebody else than if it's just written out in prose. I'm surprised actually how I'd not thought of doing feedback in this way, but I'm surprised how logical it just seemed.
So do you think it's definitely a positive way of communicating with staff?
Yeah, it's just so much easier for you to both look at it and both discuss something, rather than had I prepared half a page of writing. And the same for this, had it just been prose. It's just so much easier to see it and be able to discuss it.
Is there anything threatening about the way that it's being fed back? Because sometimes if you're asked to present a paragraph, it's quite a daunting thing, isn't it? And you have to kind of... But you were put on the spot there, weren't you, to do the bubble map? Did you feel threatened by that, or did you feel quite comfortable by it?
Quite comfortable, because there's nothing to think about, like how am I going to start my sentence, making it in a logical order, putting paragraphs. I know if something's informal, they're not going to be judging your writing style anyway, but you kind of do. Whereas if you're just asked to write 5 points like that, there's a lot less pressure. Definitely. Same with that. Like the things that go into making an effective lesson. That's all you have to focus on, is the things that go into making an effective lesson. You don't need to be focusing on anything else. Just what you're going to discuss.
So what will happen with the maps now? Will you keep those maps and put them in your file?
I'll keep them in the file, and then I've got them as a form of reference.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.